I'm probably going to die in an earthquake. I shouldn't say that. Let me knock on wood. Because, especially if it happens when I'm in bed, I'll lay there and be like, is it going to get stronger?
Like you're too chill.
Yeah. Is it going to... Do I have to get out of bed right now? Because I really don't want to. Like, if my animal isn't totally freaking out, then I'm not going to get out of bed.
That was Yayne Abeba, a born and raised San Franciscan. This is Storied San Francisco, and I'm Jeff. The topic of earthquakes came up when Yayne and I met on a crazy hot day in September at Emperor Norton's Boozland. That day, Yayne shared her experiences the day of the 1989 earthquake in San Francisco. That day was October 17th, 28 years ago today. Here's Yayne.
It was weird. It was the World Series. It was the Giants and the A's. And I was working in the Marina at a bathing suit shop.
Didn't fare too well?
No.
Okay.
I cannot even remember. Oh, Body Options. That's the name of the store where I was working. And my coworker, who had just moved from Chicago, and I were talking about how much we hated our boss and what a jackass he was. He was like this creepy guy from Iran who seemed like he was super coked out, and he would come in with his dog, and his dog would pee all over the store, and he'd expect us to clean it up.
It was technically the 80s, so being coked out was kind of just, that's how you were.
Yeah, I don't even remember his name. I'll remember his face forever, but I don't remember his name. I just remember we were talking about how much we hated our boss, and I said, let's go outside and talk about this. And she said, why? And I said, I just have a feeling we need to be outside. And the minute we walked outside, the earthquake hit, which is a good thing to do because all the walls were mirrors in the store. So they started cracking. I'm so glad we were outside. And it didn't feel really strong. It was like a rolling earthquake. And so I didn't realize that it had knocked out the phone lines and knocked out the power and collapsed freeways. I didn't realize any of that had happened. So I went to call my mom, and I'm like, oh, the phones are dead. I guess they'll come back. I wasn't even tripping. So I said, well, let's lock up the store, tape up the windows, and walk all of the cash to the main office. So we were on Union Street, and the main office was on Chestnut Street. So I was like, let's just walk all the cash to the main office. So as we were walking, we met this couple who were here from New York who were freaking out.
Tourists.
Yeah. And the girl from Chicago started freaking out, it hit her what was going on, and she started hyperventilating, and I had to slap her to calm her down. If I just slap somebody to calm them down, it was the most exciting thing to me for some reason, because I was 19 years old.
I was going to ask how old you were and kind of where you were in your life.
Yeah, I was 19.
Out of high school already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
out of high school with a job, hanging out.
In my own apartment. Thought I was a grown woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so we walked over. I got her to calm down. And there was a nursing home on Chestnut Street, a senior living facility, and they were helping all the old people out. And we were like, oh, do you need help? They said no. And then some guy was giving away free ice cream from his ice cream place. So I got some ice cream cones for the old people.
Hey, yeah. Oh, awesome.
Then we went and walked the cash over. And then we realized there were fires and stuff going on. And things had really happened. And we were like, oh my God.
Wow.
So we didn't really know what to do.
After do you think, roughly?
It felt like an eternity after, but It was probably a couple of hours because we were just kind of meandering about, do we stay and see if the power comes back on? What do we do? And then we eventually decided we were going to tape up the store and make sure, the door was secure and all of that. So it was probably a couple of hours. And we walked over to the corporate office and no one was there. So we started talking. We'd been talking to these people who were walking with us. They didn't know what to do. And we walked back to Union Street. Union Street to the store. Put the money in the very back of the store. And then this bar that's not around anymore. It was an Italian restaurant and bar. Was giving away all its beer because they didn't know when their power was going to come back on. So anything that was edible, anything perishable, they were giving away. So we got drunk. We didn't know what to do. We didn't want to walk up the hills because I lived in Alamo Square at the time, and I didn't want to walk up all the hills because I was drunk, right? And we started talking to some random guy who was like, well, I'm going to drive home to Daly City, so I'll drop you guys off. So he dropped off my coworker at her place, and then the couple from New York were just kind of stuck to me like glue. And they get out of the cab with me, and the guy's like, the cab driver wouldn't take any money. Everyone was very nice, like very supportive.
Right.
So then a couple from New York are just looking at me, and I'm like, okay. And I was like, well, did you want him to take you to your hotel? And they're like, no, everyone says it's landfill. It's probably in the water. We don't want to go down there. So these random people from New York, I was like, well, I guess you guys can come to my house, but like, I don't even think I have a flashlight. So we went into my house. I didn't know where my roommate was. My roommate had 2 cats. I couldn't find the cats. So I'm checking on everyone in the building, and it's my family's building that I was renting at the time. So I checked on my aunt. She was cool. Like, everybody was cool. I found the cats. I don't know how this happened. They were underneath the sink, underneath the garbage can, like wrapped around each other. And then we just didn't know what to do, so we were just sitting there chilling, made sure the gas was off, and then the TV...
Did you have electricity at your
Electricity came back on, so we're sitting there watching TV. And I fell asleep, and a spider somehow that had been unearthed during the earthquake bit me on my eyelid, and I had to go to the emergency room. So I was like that jackass after a natural disaster who goes into the emergency room with my eye swollen shut and the size of a golf ball. I felt like such a jerk. The doctor was like, what's going on? I'm like, it's spider bit me in my eye and I can't breathe or see. And he was like, I guess it was it was good I went in because they were like, oh, that's a venomous spider. Like, they had to lance my eye and stuff. It was really gross. But I felt like a jerk.
It is an earthquake-related injury.
Yeah.
Technically.
But that day, my grandmother, so my father's from Ethiopia. So my grandmother in Ethiopia, apparently the news in Ethiopia was there was an earthquake in San Francisco. It's fallen into the sea and everybody's dead. So she's got 3 of her sons living in San Francisco and her daughter and all their children. And she was like, I just lost my whole family. And we couldn't call her to tell her everything was okay. And then my parents, we had a corgi at the time, and I went over to my parents' house, and the corgi, my mom was like, the corgi will not come in the house. She said he walked in right after the earthquake and backed out and had not been back in the house since he stayed in the yard for like 3 days. There were also lots of aftershocks, though.
Yeah.
But he was not having it.
Well, sadly, we've been dealing with a new set of disasters here in the Bay Area this past week. Fires in the North Bay have leveled entire neighborhoods in Santa Rosa and Calistoga, displacing many families and their pets. Businesses, including wineries, have been lost. If you're looking for ways to help, go to the Storied San Francisco website, which is up now, by the way. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at StoriedSF. If you're listening on iTunes, please remember to rate and review the podcast. It really helps. I'd really like to thank Yayne for sharing her story. Joe Bigale did the music that you hear for the show. Thanks for listening, and check back next week for a really great story about building the new Bay Bridge.